What's going on, everyone? It's Rich Haywood here from Bacon Ice Cream Productions and Team RTFC, welcoming you to yet another episode of Good Times with Retro Rich. So, hey guys. Today, I was going to make something different. I was actually going to do a different video, but on the interwebs, via the Twitter, I got a message from the Next Level Gaming podcast from my brother Mike, which was pretty cool. What did he say? Well, he put out a list of the 4 games that made him the nerd he is today. And then said, hey, these are my 4. What are your 4? So I figured, in a response, instead of just tweeting them out and then having that just be one little thing, let's make a video about it, tell some stories about the games. So here we are. So today, we're going to be talking about the 4 games that made Rich the nerd he is today. All right, cool. So this list isn't just some disclaimers up front. This isn't the top 4 favorite games of all time. This isn't the top 4 games I think you should play. This isn't like anything other than literally the definition of this right here, the top 4 games that made me who I am today. These games have like a deep impact on my gaming life, and each come with some cool stories that I figured, let's kick back, take a couple minutes, and share them with you. So, I'm going to go from the beginning to the modern gaming era, or the cusp of the modern gaming era anyway, and then leave a couple room for some honorable mentions and that kind of thing. So, starting off though, I'm going to reach over here and grab this guy right here. Space Invaders on the Atari 2600. Now this one is near and dear to my heart because this game, if it wasn't for this game, there wouldn't be possibly the drive to do high score challenges at all. And the reason why is because, well, way back in the day, my uncle, he challenged me over Christmas break to some Space Invaders. And what the challenge was he was really good. He was really good at the game, and he was able to roll the scoreboard. And by rolling, I mean get so many points that the score would literally start over and start counting back up from 0. So it was possible to do that in this game. I believe it's 99,000 points for like 99999, and then once you get the 100,000th point, it rolls. So he was able to do that, and he's like, all right, well, here's the challenge. You can't do that. And I'm like, all right, well, you tell a little kid that plays nothing but Atari, because that's all he has in his room, and it's all he has in the house. I'm playing this game, right? So, so I start playing over this Christmas break, and I'm playing, and getting a little bit better, and a little bit better, and a little bit better, but still nowhere close to rolling the score. And then one night, it was about the night before New Year's Eve, which was when the challenge was supposed to end, right? When I saw him on the New Year's Eve party, I was supposed to report my progress, and if I didn't do it, then I lost the bet, right? So something happened, and I started like getting into the zone, and I was pretty much there. I think I rolled it once. I got out I was like, oh, awesome. But now I need a witness, so I gotta like wait and then hopefully do it again in the morning and then get my dad or my mom to see me doing this, right? So, went to sleep, just like all jazzed, I woke up, and I don't know what happened that day, guys. But man, I just went into the zone. I went in, I'm playing on, like standard difficulty, like all the normal stuff. But I was just in the zone, guys. Like, I rolled it once, and then again, and then again, and then again. But it was to the point where my muscle memory was locked in. I had had all the adrenaline pumped up. I had had rest, so I was like, ready to rock. And I was just moving along like a typewriter. Because, basically as you move along, you get to the point where there's no barriers, right? There's none of those blocks that can help you. It's just a row of the aliens, like the whole block of aliens, and then they move 3 or 4 steps and then go down. And if you haven't cleared the bottom row and that top, the top right row, then you're in the top right column, you're done. They hit the ground and that's game over. So I was literally starting levels by just, holding down the fire button and going through, knowing that if I hit the fire button at the precise time, held it down and went through, I would clear that whole level, and then right at the end just stay with the fire button held, and it would just boom, 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 and that last shot would just barely get that last one, and then just, you just finish the level clearing up. Similar strategy because they're moving so fast, and then you just do it all over again. So around the 5th or 6th roll, I start reaching out to my mom and dad. It's like, somebody's got to watch me do this. Somebody's got to do it. And then, reluctantly, because who cares about high scores, right? My dad's like, well, whatever, fine. And I finally got him to like sit and watch. And he watched me roll, I think it was 5 into 6. And then he's like, okay, great, you did it. And then, I was like, but we got to go soon. So, he left, he started getting ready and all that kind of stuff. I roll it again. I was like, I got it again. I'm on a roll. And I was just, there was no quitting. Like, there was no way that I was gonna die out. I could have probably gone even more. But then, I start getting the taps on the shoulder from mom. They're like, we're ready, we gotta go. Like, you gotta stop playing. And I was like, oh, I'm so sad about it. But, but that was it. Yeah, I rolled it 7 times and then end change. And then I wound up just, letting it go, and then I turned it off and all that kind of stuff. But then I was happy to report to my uncle, like, hey, I did it. And he was like, all right. Not necessarily surprising, but all right, good job. And that was cool. That was cool. But that was like a seminal moment for me, right? And that's why this game will always be with me. That's why Space Invaders will always be with me. And is a game that has made me who I am today. So, what's next? Well, what's next is we jump one more generation up and we get to Phantasy Star for the Sega Master System. Now, I would love to reach over here into this thing that's just off camera and grab that box and show you, but unfortunately I don't have my copy anymore. That's one day I will get my copy of Phantasy Star for the Sega Master System back, and we'll be playing it in the future here on Good Times and Bacon Ice Cream Productions. But that game is such a huge impact for me. Why? Because it was kind of literally my first 8-bit RPG that I ever had inside of my own house. So I only had an Atari, right? From years, can't hold a controller through, 12, 13 years old. Maybe even one more, maybe even 13 to 14. Because, I'd ask every year for the NES, no. SNES, no. Genesis, no. Hey, can I get something else? It's not the Atari, no. Not until you can either get a job or you find a way to get it that, it's on your own. I'm like, okay, well. Turns out that if people have watched the Chalk Walk, I told the story about my friend Angel, and I was able to trade and get, a Sega Master System. One of the games that he had in the collection was Phantasy Star. So I got to play this cool space age RPG and started my engagement and love with RPGs. And it was just such a cool game, right? You don't expect, after playing Atari for years and years and years, that you get this little 8-bit game where you're this kind of princess kind of lady, and you're off on this jet-setting adventure, and the graphics are really awesome. And then you get into a battle, and it gets to that first-person view, and there's huge sprites around the screen. You're like, whoa, what is this? You don't see anything like that on Atari, of course. And then, of course, you get into the dungeons, and now the dungeons are these first-person, almost 3D-looking levels where you're walking, down a hallway, and you can see depth and where the hallways turn and stuff like that. It's crazy. It was crazy cool. It blew me away, and it kind of started that spark that was oh well, what's the next game that's going to look even better and have another element that's just a little bit above, that next thing. And from then on, I was always chasing magazines, looking for what's the next cool game that has the hot new graphics, right? But Phantasy Star has a deeper memory because I played that game for years and never knew what to do. I was stuck on Palm of that first planet for years. and grinded and grinded and grinded. And I was able to get, I think it was, you have to get Mayu, the cat. And I'm pretty sure I was able to get him somehow. Maybe I unlocked Odin. But then you're supposed to do something, right? So you can get on the spaceship and go to another planet and then find the wizard, right? Find Noah. Well, I didn't know what that was, so I never left Falma. So I was running around with these characters, just level building, and that's all I would do. I'd just sit there and do that and do that and do that. And finally, on some BBS somewhere, yes, way back before the days of the internet, you know, there was these bulletin board systems where you trade information. Someone had a guide written for Phantasy Star, and sure enough, got my hands on that guide, printed it out, and I was like, oh, you're gonna go talk to this merchant? And you gotta talk to them 3 times in a row? And then you get the one thing that allows you to get the passport so you can get on the spaceship and go to the next planet? I was like, are you serious? That's crazy, right? Because you wouldn't have thought about that. I think it might be in the manual, but I didn't have the manual. I don't think my buddy had the manual for the game, so I never knew that, you know, there wasn't a hint for me that I had to talk to somebody and be aggressive and keep talking to them. And you normally, if you talk to somebody twice, you engage that whatever that thing was. But in Phantasy Star, it's that merchant. You have to talk to him 3 times, and then finally you're able to, you know, progress. So with that guide, I was able to get through the entire rest of the game until the very last door in the very last dungeon, where I was about to face the last boss. And something weird happened. My mom was, you know, vacuuming up and cleaning up the room and like that kind of stuff, all the other rooms around me. And then she came into the room where I was playing, and I was like, oh, I'm so psyched. I'm so psyched, I'm about to beat this. And she's like, oh, okay, cool, well, let me just like vacuum around. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. And, you know, let her vacuum around or whatever. And then she nicks the console with the edge of the vacuum. And then it reset. And I was like, whatever, it's no big deal. So then I go and I was like, all right, fine, and go down to continue, and I hit the button, and it starts the game over. I'm like, wait, what? Hit the button again, starts the game over. Try to go and look to see like where it is. Saves gone. The battery inside the game must have shorted or did something when the game reset. You know, the game system reset, or it wasn't supposed to because it got knocked by the thing, and it erased the save. So I played for all those years and never got to see the end of the game. And I actually never saw the end of the game because I stopped playing after that. I never saw the game until way, way, way later. In fact, during the nascent stages of Good Times with Retro Rich, I actually found a free-to-play copy somewhere and played through the game and actually beat it. But I want to get the cartridge and then do it naturally on the game cartridge. That's a mission of mine. But you know, you learn the lesson now. Like you learn, you got to take care of your saves. You got to learn that you got to take care of your system. You don't put it in the middle of the room. You know, keep it away from people that might be trying to clean around it. All that kind of stuff. You gotta be careful with the games. So anyway, again, another seminal game that helped me become who I am today. So, the next game is still a Sega game. And it's not this version, but it is Lunar, the Silver Star Story. It's another RPG, and one that raised the bar yet again for me, and showed me that, like, hey, these RPG games can be more than even just the cool 8-bit sprite, and then the cool, you know, like tunnel thing. You know, the storytelling can be really cool and topical. You know, it could be funny. You could have like all sorts of other neat things in there. You could have, you know, characters could talk, and they could have like anime cutscenes and like that kind of stuff. And it's just such an amazing, amazing game. This is the Saturn version here from Japan that I was waiting for, of course. Polymega, which may or may not appear ever. But if it does, I've got the Japanese version of Lunar Silver Star Story. I'm going to try the Sega Saturn version on some Good Times with Retro Rich soon. But this one helped me through some, you know, kind of like weird and rough times. So I was playing that game where, you know, friends were transient. I was graduating high school. I had finally gotten a job, so I was able to buy all of the things that I wanted. I was able to buy a Sega Genesis and a Sega CD and a 32X and a Nintendo Entertainment System and a Super Nintendo and like all of the, I just bought it all. I just bought everything. But this was like a random pickup at an EB Games. They just had, you know, a copy sitting there used of, you know, Lunar Silver Star Story, and it was cheap because no one wanted a Sega CD gamer back then. So I was like, oh, let me scoop that up. And man, oh man, did I fall in love with that game. And it, you know, got me through that whole transition period because, you know, like a lot of your friends move on, they go to college, and, you know, you're starting to find new friends or whatever, and you're just chilling at your house and you don't know what to do. So I just wound up playing that game, and it was the game that kind of bridged that gap between me, like, you know, saying kind of goodbye to some of the, you know, the high school friends, and then saying hello to the college and, you know, extended friends, some of the friends I have still today. But it was just a really cool experience, and I always have really good memories of that game. And its sequel, Eternal Blue, which is actually right over here. Fun fact, I liked Lunar Silver Star Story so much that I actually called Working Designs when I finished the Silver Star Story to ask them if they had more copies, because I couldn't find it anywhere, of Eternal Blue. And turns out that when I called them, they sent me the last copy that they had of Lunar Eternal Blue that they had in the warehouse to me. So that's how I got my copy, which was cool. So hey, if anyone out here used to be on the old Working Designs crew, you know, hat tip to you guys, because, you know, that was awesome. And then again, another one of those things that like impacts me, because I was able to actually interface directly with the company that made the game, so I can get the other game that they made and play it. Well, or ported, I guess. You know, Game Arts really made the game, but you know what I mean. But that was cool, and again, helped me to grow and become the nerd I am today. So, the last game that made me who I am today was actually a PC game. And that PC game I'm gonna jam into a series, because I know it's kind of cheating, but you can't, in my opinion, you can't have one without the other. And in my view, they're all basically one arc anyway. And that game is Half-Life. And that game just blew the doors off of any kind of expectation that I ever had for any kind of game. With storytelling, with graphics, with fidelity, with just overall presentation. It just like unbelievable amounts of immersion from that game. I still remember certain moments when I'm playing that game, having interactions with the AI that are programmed to be there, and they say things that are just so like unexpected and so like real, so honest, that it's just unbelievable. I just couldn't, like, I still have chills sometimes in some of those moments where you're in the hallway, you're trying to escape, and you got the grunt soldiers, and they're like looking for you, and they talk about you, right? While you're like, running around or whatever, and they like roll a grenade out, and like they have their conversation, but in the middle of the conversation, you see one of them turn and look at it, and they're like, oh no, and then it just like, blows up or whatever. And it's just like, you just see that like realistic moment where, you've altered the AI's, thinking pattern because, you put in the new element. It's just a crazy cool game. Half-Life also was what opened the door for, true multiplayer experiences. I don't know how many hours I poured into Half-Life multiplayer. Like Half-Life Deathmatch, I must have played thousands of hours. Getting maps and mods and all that kind of stuff, opening the door to things like mods. And I knew I played around with Doom back in the day, and of course I had Metallica WAD, the mod that changed everything to MIDI for Metallica, and you get the cheat modifications for Doom and like a lot of kind of stuff. But Half-Life, I went crazy into it. There were all sorts of modifications for the Half-Life Deathmatch maps, and you can make it look like anything. There was like all sorts of crazy stuff, and that led to, of course, things like Day of Defeat, things like Counter-Strike, things like what was it? There was another huge one. There's so many more. There's so many more add-ons that wound up becoming either full releases or games within games. It's just such a crazy thing, and that was one of the first experiences I ever had that showed me that, and that was like, wow, okay, well, gaming can really just go nuts, and it did. You know, after that, I mean, there was so many more games, but you know, Half-Life was that thing where, you know, as soon as I got a computer that could run something, like that was the game, right? That was the game to play. And then of course Half-Life 2 just took the bar even further. And Half-Life 2 was the first game that I ever played when I built a box to play a game, and I built it so I could play Half-Life 2. So, you know, that's kind of like shaped me working on computers and learning about computer components, because I was just doing it for fun back then, but now it's my job, right? Now it's what I do for a living, as I work with computers. So, you know, it's pretty cool. It's pretty neat. So, you know, those are the 4 that, you know, definitely, you know, kind of molded me into who I am. Now, there's some honorable mentions that I would like to put out there. Of course, I've got to give hat tip to hard driving, the arcade. Why? Because this game, you know, like I said, it literally taught me how to drive. So, you know, like if a game can teach you something like a life skill, then of course, you've got to put it in the list. So hard driving is definitely a part of this guy's DNA, for sure. Another game, it's upstairs, but another game is one of those seminal games that, of course, might be on a lot of people's lists, and that's Final Fantasy VII. And the reason why it's on my list is because, man, oh man, that game is just killer. And it changed the way I thought about, you know, modern RPGs for forever. You know, like going from Phantasy Star through to Lunar, and then getting to Final Fantasy VII, it was just like, you know, it just blown away, right? You know, with the amount of things that could happen, and now today, like, I mean, forget about it. I mean, you know, you've got, you know, full-blown games like, you know, like 10 after that, you know, Final Fantasy 10 after that was another landmark title. I really loved Final Fantasy 8 and 9. Those are fantastic. You know, but the rest of the series just kept going and going and going, getting bigger and bigger. So, but Final Fantasy 7 to me was like, just, you know, I finally get to play a mainline Final Fantasy game. I pre-ordered it. I had purchased my PlayStation just a couple months before and got Tobal #1 so I can play the demo. I was really excited for that. And then even playing the demo just blew me away. That was one of the first games that I was like, wow, I played the demo of a game, and I must have played it over and over and over again. And I did it a couple more times with more games later on, but Final Fantasy VII was the first one that really hit for me. And, you know, definitely huge part of the DNA. And then, of course, it led to other games that were part of the DNA as far as hours of play. Quick hat tip to Final Fantasy Tactics, because, I mean, come on, that game's just nuts. And I must have put 1,000 hours plus into that game. So, but yes. But anyway, in the modern era, if there was one, you know, if there was like that other meme, right? Here's a bunch of pictures of modern games. You can only save one. Well, if there was one, it doesn't matter what is on there. It doesn't matter what is on there. If this were a picture of the protagonist, which of course is Nathan Drake, is on that list, he gets saved every time. Because the Uncharted series, culminating to me, in my mind, in Uncharted 3, is the best. Yeah, it was, I hat tip to Naughty Dog for putting together a basically playable movie. And it played like a movie experience. I don't care what anyone says about the shooting in the game. I don't care what anyone says about regular combat in the game. I defy you to find a better series that puts you in the moment like you're playing the main role of an action movie star in an action movie. There's just not, there is none. None of those things could happen without, you know, now that, you know, you can see other things that nod to it, but not before Uncharted. Uncharted was the one. You know, I know, yes, okay, people could say, all right, well, what about Tomb Raider? No. And Tomb Raider was great. It was a great game, but it didn't immerse you like Uncharted. It didn't world build like Uncharted did, and it certainly didn't feel as grand when you get to the moments that happen in some of these games, especially Uncharted 3 for me. But man, those games were just, it's like, you know, the things that you talk about. Uncharted 3 was a table conversation back in the day with my friends, going, oh wow, you know, what if they made an Indiana Jones game, only like you really played like you're Indiana Jones, and like, you know, they had the swashbuckling thing, and then, you know, maybe there's a scene where you're in a plane and all of a sudden the plane opens up and then you're flying out of the window and you're flying through the air and all that kind of stuff, and then they're like, yeah, but that'll never happen. Or if it'll happen, we'll be old. We'll be 70 years old before that happens. And then all of a sudden, you know, Uncharted 3 happens, and then you get that scene, and you're like, wow, that's so crazy. So, anyway, that's it. There's my list. That's all of the list and all of the hat tips. So, what about you guys? What's your list? Hit us up in the comments below, or make your own vid. You know, tag some people up. When I put this up, I'm going to probably tag some people in the show link, and then see if they want to come on in and make a video and tell a little story about, yeah, what games made you who you were. So I definitely hope that you enjoyed these stories, and if you like some more, again, hit me back up in those comments and tell me, hey, you know what? I love game stories. Tell me more. Tell more stories, because I've got tons of them. So, okay. Well, before we go, speaking of friends, check them out. Check those friends out. Give them some likes, give them some subs, give them congratulations, and all that kind of stuff. You want some more friends? Boom. There's some more talking about Evercade, which is awesome. There's going to be a pretty good Evercade video coming at the end of the week. It's the Evercast Score Challenge, so we're going to be talking about that. So, in the meantime, check out some more channels that talk about Evercade. And that brings us to us here at Bacon Ice Cream Productions. Once again, we thank you for that. On the way out, if you could, please hit that red subscribe button. Helps us out, helps the channel grow, where we can do good things for great causes, which of course is the mission here at Bacon Ice Cream Productions. We love doing that. We love helping great causes like this one. Yes. The Creeps Walk Down to Alzheimer's 2021 walk has been going on. Chris has taken a sledgehammer to that goal, and we're still running strong. Still running strong all the way through October, so don't forget, go down below, hit the links, give them some love, you know, because any little bit helps. And hey, you know what? You never know. Breakthroughs can happen every day. I was reading a headline yesterday that said, you know, some good things might be coming. So, hey, get on in there, hit the button, help out. All right. Until next time, we'll catch you next time for some good times. I'm Rich, and we'll see you later. Take it easy, guys.
TeamRTFC.BaconIceCream.com